Bizarre Brain Comics. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody was kung fu fighting, yeah! Those cats are fast as lightning, yeah! Yes, as if you couldn't tell. This is Gary for Bizarre Brain Comics, where we like to break down comics art and stories. I like to think of them as art and literature. And today, we're going to talk about this book right here. This comic. This is from Marvel Comics, Giant Size Master of Kung Fu #1 from 1974. And the story that in this book that I'm going to talk about is Death Mask, written by Doug Monk, or maybe it's supposed to be Munch. I've mentioned him before, and artist Paul Gulacy with inks by Dan Adkins. A little sip of tea here with my whistle. It's a good thing I'm no singer. Okay. And Shang Chi, Master of Kung Fu, was created by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin for Marvel Comics in 1973. That's squarely in the Bronze Age. And he is a master of a variety of Asian martial arts. Now, the writer, Doug Monk, that's the way I'm going to pronounce it, Monk. He was born in 1948. He's still around. So in 1973, he began working at Marvel Comics in Chamber of Chills #7, and he was the lead writer on the Marvel Black and White magazines, such as Doc Savage and Planet of the Apes, etc. For their color line of books, he wrote for Werewolf by Night and Master of Kung Fu. And he co-created the characters Deathlock and Moonlight and the fantasy series Weird World, which involved little elves and dwarves and magicians. And he's had a long, successful career writing for both Marvel and DC. And the artist is Paul Gulacy. And as a young man, I don't have his date of birth, as a young man growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, he drew inspiration from the art of Jim Steranko. He's one of the greats. He was the artist on Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. He also did a little bit of Captain America. He studied, that's Gulacy, he studied at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And he worked as an assistant for Dan Adkins, who does the inks on this story, and through whom he sent samples to editor Roy Thomas and was then hired. He started working for Marvel drawing Morbius the Living Vampire. I remember that. In 1974, he started working on the title he is most closely associated with, The Master of Kung Fu. And he worked on many other titles throughout the 70s. He created an early graphic novel, this is in the very late 70s, or early 80s, I can't remember exactly when, a graphic novel called Saber, which is a post-apocalyptic adventure for Eclipse Comics with Don McGregor. And now, the reason I'm doing Shang Chi right now is because, I think it's this week, the new Marvel movie, Shang Chi and the Curse of the Ten Rings is being released. Yeah. Now, in the comics, Shang Chi was the son of the Chinese supervillain Fu Manchu, which has a long literary history going back to the 1930s, created by Sax Rohmer. And he was a villain, and in a series of books, and he was always being defeated by I've forgotten the name, some British spy types, and they are characters in the Master Kung Fu books. But when they did the movie, they would have had to gotten a lot of extra, paid for a lot of extra rights to have it Fu Manchu. So as I understand it, I might be wrong because I haven't seen the movie, that in the movie, his father is the Mandarin, who was an Iron Man supervillain. And he had mentioned in some Iron Man movies. And they even had a fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And if you have seen the animated Iron Man movie, which came out the year before the live-action Iron Man movie, the villain in that was the Mandarin. And that gives you a little idea of what this movie might be about. So, let's get to Kung Fu fighting. Yeah! Those cats as fast as lightning. Hua! And here we have giant-sized Master of Kung Fu, is a 68-page book. That's including the covers. Otherwise, it'd be 64. Very bold and dynamic cover illustration there. I think it does. There's no credit given to it, but I think it was drawn by Sal Buscema. And here we go, the great art of Paul Gulacy. Okay, and we see Shang Chi. See his everyday wear was his martial arts uniform and death mask. That's the French spelling, masque. He's walking down the street. This is in Chinatown. I believe it's in Chinatown. In New York, yeah, in New York. Everything's in New York in Marvel Comics. And he sees a straw dummy of himself hanging from a light pole. And then, well, that's supposed to take him aback. But his senses are alert. And he quickly comes under attack. And here we see this whole string of images describing the action when he takes out after whoever threw that knife at him. Jumping over the car, and here we have very, very dynamic, right in your face kick. Boom, boom. And here the villain's there. He's being ambushed. They take off their robes. And they are part of his father's assassin squad, the Council of Seven. There he is. Some very, very dynamic martial arts, fantasy martial arts technique, and you can see his Paul Gulacy, and you can really see, especially this is still his early stuff, you can see a very strong Steranko influence in this art, in these figures, in the foreshortening of the figures, and then have some very good backgrounds. Eliminates backgrounds entirely when they're unnecessary for the action, and these assassins. Then they've been defeated, so they commit suicide. Here's a note. Greetings on the anniversary of the day of your birth, my son. It is a most appropriate occasion upon which to observe the day of your death. Fu Manchu. Yes. The villain, his father, they're always at odds against one another because Shang-Chi was trained to be an assassin for his father, and he learned his father was a villain, and he works against him. Here we have very questionable racial stereotypes in the image, but that's drawing directly from Sax Rohmer's Fu Manchu. Here he is, and he's learning that they have failed. So those are dead. Here he comes, has the Council of Seven, and if you look closely here, you can see the table that they're sitting around is shaped like half of the yin-yang symbol, which appears on Shang-Chi's back. Yeah, Oh, they don't have it here on the cover anywhere. And then it has two new people come in to take the place of the deaths of those dead to make it 7 again. And here he is. Look at that figure. Look at that background. Look at that. Great Gulacy. The detail and the exaggeration. So he walks on, sees this lovely Asian girl as he walks by, and then he's attacked from below, pulled into the sewer, where he is again attacked by one of the assassins. And again, they're in the slop and mire-filled sewers. He defeats the fellow. I don't think he could actually break a chain that way, but it's good for the story. There he is. He defeats him. The man commits suicide, and then he's helped out by that lovely lady he had just seen, who was then injured by a shuriken star being thrown. Apparently it's supposed to be at him, but not. So he takes out after the assassin and takes him out, helps the lady back to her apartment. Very femme fatale. It is beautiful, lovely ladies, and here he discovers, she is also an assassin. She's supposed to take him out, and she fails, and she leaps to her death out the window, and then another dummy pops down in the window for him to see, and he shatters the window casing. And here this note says, "As the anniversary of the day of your birth wanes, so approaches the moment of your death, Fu Manchu." So he had anticipated all these failures, but he had hoped they would be successful. And so he goes to a place that is the home of Fu Manchu. And look, a nice background, very nice detail in the architecture, the Asian style and design of the backgrounds, and even that Chinese dragon there. Look at all this. Here's this lady reclining, keeping company with she's a servant of Fu Manchu, probably smoking opium. And the big guy here, who's his aide-de-camp, getting the rest of the assassins together. And they're marching in. There's Shang Chi, and he sees them marching towards. They're going to convene again in the council chamber. In the darkness of the chamber, they walk in, and then the light is lit. The torches, you can see. Then the aide-de-camp discovers that two of the robed assassins are found unconscious. And he rushes. Look at that. That is right out of Steranko, right there. That figure right there, right out of Steranko, as well as the perspective on the Fu Manchu figure. So he knows that there's imposters. Fu Manchu slams down and his hand on the table, and the dead dummy, boom, falls down. And Shang Chi reveals himself. Boom. Advertisement, of course, Kung Fu and Karate. Now he engages all of the assassins while Fu Manchu takes off. Again, nice storytelling, very, very, very good action sequences, very wordy, because the whole time, in his own head, Shang-Chi is narrating what's going on. Attacked him with an axe. Oh, misses, but gets the head of the dummy. Then he gets his own head slammed down on the axe, which kills him. This other swordsman attacks. Does him with a torch. And there he discovers, while being distracted by the fight, Fu Manchu has gotten away. Here's the lady, and there you go. There is Fu Manchu off to safety in a helicopter. He says, "You have performed well, pilot. And now we journey to the heart of America to steal it forever." and I wonder at my father's destination, for that is where I would direct my rage. And that's the end of that story. But this has, well, I think it's a couple other Shang Chi stories. Craig Russell, another great artist, and this is early in his career. And then, I have this little direction of martial arts. A reprint from a 50s story. This is the Yellow Claw, who was a Marvel villain back then in the 50s. Of course, he was Chinese, communist Chinese and stuff. And what was his character's name? Who was I can't remember his name. Fu Manchu. But the good guy fighting him is an FBI, a Chinese American FBI agent, who is later an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Here's another one, Ron Wilson, Mike Esposito story. Now, Shang-Chi was, of course, at that time in the early 70s, Kung Fu movies were very popular. And Shang-Chi was directly influenced by those, and in fact was modeled after Bruce Lee's character in the Enter the Dragon. Here we have some other stuff. They had other characters as well. They had, all their martial arts characters fit into the superhero world. Here's just another one. Is this one? This was also by Paul Gulacy. This one is Dan and Dave Day, and they closely imitated Paul Gulacy's style, because his style became so known associated with the Master of Kung Fu. And there are many shots in this story that are taken directly from Bruce Lee. See, and this one is Mike Zeck. He also did the same. Some very good actions. Now, the other Kung Fu characters they had were like Iron Fist, and they gave him a superpower. But he's still primarily martial arts until he got in with Power Man, and they were heroes for hire. That's a lot of fun. And also had Sons of the Tiger, which were 3 men with magic pendants that enhanced their own martial arts skill and power. And they were glorified superheroes, martial arts superheroes. Okay, and this all this is a lot of fun, just down memory lane, because remember those old movies and especially Bruce Lee, his magnificent stuff. And the stories were mostly well crafted, depending on the writers, of course. Almost always extremely well drawn, especially after Gulacy. Now, I don't know much about the more contemporary versions of Shang-Chi. Of course, he's dressed differently. And they brought him back in the 90s. This was published through the early 80s. Then they brought him back in the 90s, and I don't know anything about that stuff since then. But they're all fun reading. This is just a few of them. I've got some also the large tabloid-sized one, and they also had black and white magazines. Throat's a little raspy. And well, then that's all. I think that's all I've got for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with your other friends who are into comics, or people who like martial arts, like my wife. Please share, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, comics are art.